Time for us to check in with Carmi Levy, CTV tech analyst. We do this every Thursday afternoon. So, Carmi, I noticed one of the headlines today, and this is great because I do this, and I wonder how many other people just automatically click on it when it says accept all cookies. You have the option to say no. I don't even know what they are. So let's get into that. Should you click accept all cookies whenever you see that message come up on your PC?
Normally, Aaron, as you know, I'm a huge cookie fan. Oreo, chocolate chip, oatmeal, you name it, I will eat them all. But these are not the good cookies that we know and love. These cookies are technological cookies. It is, in tech terms, a cookie is a small piece of code that a website will install on your device when you visit that site. So if I, go to, the CJD website, it will actually install a cookie on my phone if I give it permission, or on my laptop computer, so that it'll remember who I am. So it remembers usernames, it remembers passwords, it remembers when you visited last. It stores a few pieces of identifiable information so that the next time you visit, you don't have to sign in again. It customizes the experience for you. It's really a convenient thing, and that's what it was originally created for. The problem with cookies is, over time, they've grown. And so cookies don't just store your usernames and password. They store all sorts of other personal information. And it's not just used to customize the experience. It's that in many cases, it collects data. So the cookie sits on your computer or your phone, and it sends data back to the originator, back to the website, the company, and then they use it to maybe serve up ads, or they sell that information to other people. Basically, your privacy in the name of convenience is being violated. And so there's, the message is, and, you go to visit a website, by law now, it must ask, do you want to accept all cookies? That's why we see those pop-ups. And they make it so easy for us to just go accept all, because if we say no, we have to dig into a menu. We have to go through a whole bunch of processes. The path of least resistance is to just say, oh, I'll just say yes and get it over with. What bad can happen? Well, what you're basically doing is giving permission to have all your information shared. Add that up over all the different websites that you visit and all the things you do online. That's a lot of information that you're sharing, and that ultimately is really not good for our digital privacy.
Yeah, but you brought up a terrible conundrum here, because convenience is an awfully big part of what you do, especially if you want to keep going back to that same website and not having to re-enter your password or whatever else. Is it dangerous at the end of the day to just keep clicking yes?
For sites that we know and trust, like the CJD website, I know and I trust it. I know, I know who runs it, so that's okay. But if it's a website that we're not really familiar with, that can get us into trouble, because it could be a sketchy operator, it could be a scammer, it could be a cyber criminal. We're not quite sure. So most of the time, it's just benign. It's almost like those Facebook ads. They're annoying, but they don't do anything to us. But it could also get us into trouble. It could set us up for an identity theft attack. It could put personal information in the hands of cyber criminals. And so, by and large, we should think twice every site that we visit. Okay. Do I know them? Do I trust them? Do I want them to have that information? Do I want the convenience of being able to sign in again, not having to type in things every single time I visit? Then yeah, accept the cookies. But if it's a site that you're not familiar with, you're probably not going to visit again. You don't know who the source is. You can't identify them. You're not quite sure. Then you might want to say no. So we really, really got to slow it down. You see the pop-up, stop time, and start thinking about whether you want to click that yes button or not.
Last question, then we'll move on. If you've already done this, if this is a habit, he said, looking at a mirror, is there some way at one point where you should actually consider deleting all cookies and starting over again? Is that even worth doing?
It absolutely is. And in fact, you can go into your browser on any device, your smartphone, your computer, your tablet, and you can have it delete cookies. You can have it delete your browsing history. And that's a good idea to do periodically, because the longer you go without doing that, the more stuff just accumulates on your device. That's one of the reasons why your browser tends to slow down over time. Pages load more slowly. They might crash a little bit more often because it's been collecting all of that cookie and related information for months and months and months. Sometimes it's good to just kind of go in and clean out all the cobwebs. So go into the settings, do delete them every once in a while, and then reestablish your relationships with the websites that you trust.
Okay, let's move on. The story here is interesting. There's been so much talk, of course, about lawsuits against some of these social media companies and kids. Well, now Instagram has, I guess, taken a step, call it that, I guess, as far as protecting kids from seeing some of these images. What are they doing?
They are introducing new tools to stop what they call image abuse. Basically, if they detect, they're using artificial intelligence now, if it detects that there's nudity in an image that someone sends via direct message, it will blur it. It will not display it. And it will also recognize who you're communicating with, and it will limit the ability for individuals to share that kind of content in the first place. We know full well that predators are using direct messaging on Instagram to engage in things like sextortion, adults preying on kids. We all remember the case of Amanda Todd, where she was a victim of sextortion and ultimately decided to end her life. We know this is epidemic across the country. And so the platforms are going to make it more difficult. Instagram is leading with this for nude imagery, both stills as well as videos, to be shared via direct message, which is good. But I always say that there's an asterisk there, because as a parent, the last thing you ever want to do is assume, oh, okay, now that Instagram is banning nudity, I can let my guard down. No, it is still mom and dad's responsibility. You still have to have those conversations with your kids. You still have to, treat them or train them so they know to come to you. This is yet another safety feature that probably should have been introduced years ago, and it's a good thing, but it doesn't mean that we can all afford to let our guard down. Okay. The digital space, particularly social media platforms like Instagram, are still incredibly dangerous places for teenagers and tweens and kids who are not fully developed yet. And no matter what features they introduce, it's still never going to be enough.
Yeah, as I said, step in the right direction. Let's hope we keep seeing. They say they're committed. Let's see how long that commitment lasts and just how deep that commitment is. Carmi, let me go to this story. So we know all about this here in Canada, and the fact that Google, basically said, no, we don't want to help out. We don't want to do our part. And then Google said, okay, we will do our part. And I'm talking here about helping media and making money available. They're not doing this in California, which struck me as odd. So why the different sort of setup there compared to what they agreed to eventually do in Canada?
Well, so, we have spoken about this frequently. It's Bill C-18, the Online News Act, that is kind of moving through the pipeline, will become the law of the land later this year. It's already received royal assent. Google was very, let's call them cantankerous during that process. They threatened to take their ball and go home. They told the Canadian government they didn't want to pay an unlimited amount of money to negotiate deals with Canadian media platforms. And in the end, they threatened to go dark. They were testing removing news links from search results and other tools. And in the end, they relented. They paid $100 million a year, and we can still search for Canadian-sourced media content. In California, they're threatening now the same thing. California has a law very much like our Online News Act called the California Journalism Preservation Act. And Google is threatening, they're going to be testing. It sounds exactly like the verbiage they used when they did this in Canada. They're basically flexing their muscles and telling the government of California, we don't like this law. It's going to make life more expensive for us. We don't want to pay for news content, and we will take our ball and go home if you force us to. So it's kind of sad that every jurisdiction that introduces this law to hold tech companies accountable and make them pay to fund good journalism. It's kind of sad that the response is always the same. It's kind of sad that here in Canada, if you use Facebook or Instagram, there's no more news from Canadian-sourced media. They have taken their ball and gone home, and it's kind of sad that Google is playing hardball in California. I think in the end, Google will end up relenting, and I think they will pay a certain amount. But basically what they're doing is they're negotiating hard because they want that number to be as small as possible. Remember, here in Canada, they got it down to $100 million, which is like a drop in the bucket for a company like that.
Ain't that the truth? All right, Carmi, that's our time. I thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Wonderful being here. Thanks, Aaron.
Clear your cookies.
I will.